Welcome back to Chilling Fireside Stories. Before we begin, I want to take a moment to thank you all for your support. If you enjoy this content, please consider subscribing to the channel. It truly means the world to me and encourages me to continue bringing you these stories. Make sure to hit that bell icon so you never miss a new upload, and please share this video with others who love a good mystery. Tonight, I invite you to grab a warm drink, settle in, and listen to the haunting story of one of the most infamous unsolved murders in American history, the Black Dahlia. Before we begin, a quick warning. This video covers real-life events that include eerie and graphic details, which some viewers may find disturbing. If you are sensitive to stories involving gruesome or unsettling content, you may want to proceed with caution or consider skipping this one. Viewer discretion is advised. The year is 1947. Post-war Los Angeles is a city on the rise, filled with opportunity, hope, and the promise of a new beginning. But beneath the glittering surface lies a darker reality, one where crime, corruption, and danger lurk in the shadows. This is the backdrop for the brutal, unsolved murder of 22-year-old Elizabeth Short, whose gruesome death shocked the nation and has continued to fascinate and terrify for over 7 decades. LA in the 1940s was a city of contrast. The end of World War II brought a wave of optimism to the United States, with returning soldiers and booming industries, and nowhere was this more evident than in LA. The city, known as the capital of the film industry, became a beacon of hope for thousands of young men and women who flocked there with dreams of becoming the next big star. Yet, despite its allure of wealth and glamour, LA had an underbelly that few wanted to talk about. The city's booming population brought an increase in crime, corruption, and a dark side that existed just beneath the shiny veneer of Hollywood. Organized crime syndicates controlled parts of the city, and the police were often under-resourced and overworked. This is the LA that Elizabeth Short stepped into. Born in Massachusetts, Elizabeth herself arrived in LA, like so many looking for her big break. A Massachusetts native, Elizabeth's beauty was striking. Her raven black hair, pale skin, and bright red lipstick earned her the nickname the Black Dahlia, a moniker inspired by the popular film The Blue Dahlia. But the world of Hollywood glamour was fleeting for many women like her. Struggling to make ends meet, Elizabeth often found herself without stable work, bouncing between jobs and living with friends or acquaintances. Little did she know her life would end in one of the most grisly ways imaginable. Still, Elizabeth's life, despite its hardships, was not what would make her infamous. It was her death that would shock the world. On the chilly morning of January 15, 1947, LA resident Betty Berzinger was taking a walk through Leimert Park with her young daughter. As she strolled past an empty lot, something strange caught her eye, what appeared to be a mannequin discarded in the grass. But as she got closer, her stomach turned and her heart raced with horror. This was no mannequin. It was the naked, mutilated body of a woman, cleanly severed in two at the waist, and posed in a disturbingly deliberate manner. Betty Berzinger immediately ran to a nearby house and called the police. When officers arrived, they were confronted with a crime scene more brutal than anything they had ever encountered. The body of Elizabeth Short lay there, bisected with surgical precision, drained of blood, and devoid of any signs of a struggle. The lower half of her body had been placed a foot away from the upper half, and her arms were positioned above her head. Her face had been grotesquely slashed in a Glasgow smile, a mutilation so shocking that even hardened detectives were left reeling. The body had been meticulously cleaned, indicating that the murder had taken place elsewhere before she was moved to the location in Leimert Park. Despite the gruesome nature of the crime, there was a strange lack of physical evidence at the scene. No footprints, no bloodstains, and no signs of a struggle. It was as if the killer had staged the scene with painstaking care. Elizabeth Short's body was quickly sent for an autopsy, and the findings were as disturbing as the discovery itself. The coroner determined that she had been dead for around 10 hours before her body was found. meaning she had likely been killed during the night of January 14, 1947. The cuts that bisected her body had been made with precision, indicating that the killer had knowledge of human anatomy. The investigation also revealed that Elizabeth had been tortured before her death. Her body bore signs of blunt force trauma to the head, and her wrists and ankles showed evidence of being tied up. However, the ultimate cause of death was determined to be the cuts to her face and a blow to the head. Whoever had done this had taken their time, meticulously working to ensure there was no evidence left behind. Almost as soon as Elizabeth Short's body was discovered, the media descended on the case like vultures. The brutal murder of a young, beautiful woman was the perfect recipe for sensational headlines, and the LA newspapers wasted no time in turning Elizabeth's tragic death into a media circus. The press gave Elizabeth the now infamous nickname the Black Dahlia, a reference to the 1946 film The Blue Dahlia that starred Veronica Lake. The nickname stuck, and soon the details of Elizabeth's life were being plastered across front pages, often with little regard for accuracy. Sensationalized reports painted Elizabeth as a dangerous femme fatale, a woman living on the edge, drifting through life and taking advantage of men. Some even suggested that her death was the result of her involvement in Hollywood's dark underworld, though there was little evidence to support these claims. In truth, Elizabeth was a young woman who had come to LA with dreams of stardom like so many others, but the press was more interested in selling papers than in telling the true story of her life. As the media frenzy reached its peak, the LAPD was scrambling to conduct a proper investigation, but they faced a major hurdle. No forensic technology at the time could provide any concrete leads. There was no DNA testing, no sophisticated crime scene analysis tools, and no reliable way to collect fingerprints from the scene. In a case where the killer had been so careful, leaving behind no physical evidence, the police were at a major disadvantage from the start. The LA Police Department, under intense pressure to solve the case, immediately launched one of the most exhaustive manhunts in the city's history. Over 750 LAPD officers were assigned to the case, and more than 150 suspects were interrogated over the following months. Some of the suspects included high-profile figures, ranging from businessmen to doctors, but none were able to provide a solid lead. Detectives worked tirelessly to reconstruct Elizabeth Short's final days, piecing together witness testimonies from those who had seen her before her death. Elizabeth had been living in various hotels and boarding houses in the months leading up to her murder, often relying on the kindness of strangers for shelter. Witnesses claimed to have seen her with different men in the days before she died, but no one could pinpoint a solid suspect. The LAPD began receiving a flood of tips and confessions, many from people who had no connection to the crime. As the case dragged on with no real leads, it became clear that the killer had managed to evade capture by meticulously covering their tracks. The lack of physical evidence, combined with the sheer brutality of the crime, led to a wide range of theories about who could have committed such a heinous act. Over the decades, various suspects have been named, and several theories have emerged, some more plausible than others. One of the most enduring theories involves Dr. George Hodel, a wealthy and well-connected physician who had ties to the Hollywood elite. Hodel became a prime suspect in the early 2000s when his own son, former LAPD detective Steve Hodel, began investigating his father's possible involvement in the Black Dahlia case. Steve uncovered a trove of suspicious evidence, including photographs of a woman who bore a striking resemblance to Elizabeth Short and writings that seemed to suggest his father had knowledge of the murder. George Hodel had been under suspicion for other crimes, including the alleged abuse of his own daughter, and his wealth and connections may have helped him avoid prosecution. In addition, his medical expertise made him a credible suspect, given the surgical precision of the cuts on Elizabeth's body. But Hodel wasn't the only suspect. There were others, each with their own bizarre and troubling connection to the case, though none as potentially compelling as George Hodel. Yet, in the absence of solid forensic evidence, it became increasingly difficult for detectives to pin the crime on any one individual. Another theory that has persisted over the years involves the idea that Elizabeth Short's murder was linked to the dark side of Hollywood, or more specifically, to someone involved in the film industry. At the time of her death, LA was a hotbed of corruption, illicit activities, and underground crime syndicates. Many in the city believed that someone powerful, possibly with ties to organized crime or the entertainment industry, was responsible for her murder. Another compelling theory focused on a possible link to a series of similar murders that occurred around the same time. Some investigators wondered if Elizabeth's killer could have been a serial murderer who had honed his gruesome craft on other victims. This theory gained traction when it was discovered that several women had been found murdered and mutilated in a manner strikingly similar to Elizabeth Short, both before and after her death. However, much like the other leads, these theories ultimately led nowhere concrete, leaving the Black Dahlia case one of the coldest of cold cases in American history. Over the decades, countless documentaries, articles, and podcasts have re-examined the evidence, interviewed experts, and explored new theories. Each time, a new generation becomes captivated by the mystery of who killed Elizabeth Short. Was it a Hollywood doctor with a twisted mind? A figure from the mob exacting revenge? Or was it someone altogether unknown, a person who has long since taken their dark secrets to the grave? While the Black Dahlia case went cold decades ago, advancements in forensic science have led some to wonder if we might one day have a breakthrough. In recent years, cases that were once considered unsolvable have been cracked thanks to modern DNA technology and criminal databases. The 2018 arrest of the Golden State Killer, a serial murderer who had eluded law enforcement for decades, showed just how powerful DNA analysis can be in solving even the most long-standing cold cases. In fact, the Black Dahlia case remains officially open with the LAPD, although there are no new leads that have come to light in recent years. The challenge, of course, is that most of the physical evidence from the case is long gone, and any biological material that might have been left behind is likely too degraded to analyze. In the end, the story of the Black Dahlia is one of the most haunting unsolved mysteries in American history, a tragic reminder of how fragile life can be, and how one moment can forever change the course of history. Elizabeth Short, the beautiful aspiring actress from Massachusetts, will forever be remembered not for the life she lived, but for the brutal, unsolved crime that ended it. Thank you for joining me on this chilling journey through one of America's most infamous unsolved mysteries. If you enjoyed this story, please consider subscribing to the channel. It means so much to me and it helps keep this series alive. Don't forget to hit the bell icon so you're the first to know when new videos drop. And as always, feel free to leave your thoughts, theories, and comments below. Who do you think killed the Black Dahlia? Let's keep the conversation going. Until next time, stay safe and keep your fire burning bright.